So let's get our panel's take on this speech by Donald Trump. No mention of the controversy of the judge, the comments that Mr. Trump has made regarding the ethnicity of the judge that is hearing the Trump University lawsuit. But here with me on set, CBS News senior political editor Steve Chigueras, Democratic strategist and former deputy, I want to make sure I get this right now, campaign, I think that's the wrong title that's in there, but Liz, you are the former deputy campaign manager for the O'Malley campaign, Liz Smith. Also with us, former communications director for the Mike Huckabee campaign, Hogan Gidley, CBSN political contributor and former John McCain campaign manager, Rick Davis, and CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist, Leslie Sanchez. All right, so what did you make, Rick, of the speech that we heard from Donald Trump?
Well, as you pointed out, he was on a teleprompter tonight. So,
well, I only point that out because Major noted that's the first time we've seen him do that.
First time we've seen him do that. It's an important milestone in his maturation process as a presidential candidate. So check that box. Okay. Hopefully he'll have one even when he just does press avails. Look, I mean, that was the number one question. Like, did he have the discipline to not go off script? And so in the category of baby steps to the presidency, tonight was a baby step to the presidency. He showed that he could actually deliver on message in an important time. All of official GOP Washington is sleeping soundly tonight that they don't have another controversy to deal with tomorrow morning when they wake up. Although the night is young, he usually doesn't finish tweeting until at least 3 a.m. But yeah, it was a good night for Donald Trump. I mean, he was able to pivot away from a very bad controversy that has cost 4 major Republican names to withdraw their support for him today, and it wasn't going well. So the fact that he was able to clean it up and get through a night where he was on message and engaged Hillary Clinton in a way that Republicans could say, gee, if he can keep that up for the rest of the campaign, we got a shot at this thing.
I love that the most positive thing that we can say about Donald Trump's speech is that he read off a teleprompter. I mean, like, if that's the standard, I mean, I think, that should be the standard for being able to graduate from 8th grade, not for being president. But it speaks to what a low bar.
Well, there are very few 8th graders who are reading off a teleprompter.
Without
that, I think you can get out of high school.
But it speaks to what a low bar there is for Donald Trump, that the fact that he could read some sentences off a teleprompter and not, say offensive things, that's success.
But, I think one point that's worth mentioning is that, if part of this was to calm Republicans down, this was an example of a moment where he actually listened to some people other than his own head, right? And if this is an opportunity to show Republicans, okay, I can take direction from people, whether it's my advisors or whether it's Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican Party. I'm listening to people and I'm willing to listen. And every time he steps in it, it seems like he has to reset and say, and assure Republicans that I'm not totally off the reservation. I might be off the reservation 80% of the time, but not all the time. And I can work with Republicans. And so I think this was an effort to show that he can actually work with these folks.
I think we're getting too lost in the issue of the teleprompter, right? And it's a really fun anecdotal thing, and you stuttered through it if you're not used to using it. The point is, it's a prepared speech that they are trying to move through that's not memorized. If he was on Broadway, we would memorize very quickly. If he's an actor, they memorize it and be delivering a wonderful speech. But the point is, it's a series of set ideas that are important enough to really look at carefully and make that presentation, and that's taking it seriously. I think that's the point of this. It's not off the cuff. Right. It's not just kind of weaving a bunch of really, interesting kind of attacks together. It's really trying to say, I'm trying to move forward.
Taking it seriously is the key. I think that you're right. We're getting lost in the teleprompter here. Look, the message and the theme that he said tonight is the same message and theme he's been talking about the entire time. It's a populist tone about the American worker. I like the theme, put America first. I liked him talking about the rigged system. I liked him saying we can't fix the rigged system if we rely on the very people who rigged the system to fix it. It's a sad day when foreign governments with deep pockets have more influence over our government than the American people. Those are great themes to continue on. And I want to say, us here, that's the kind of stuff that can bring back Reagan Democrats and potentially flip some of those blue states, potentially. And that's why all the Republicans are wearing blue tonight, because in honor of the blue states, we're going to try to flip them and change them red because.
And we like to coordinate ahead of time.
And we like to coordinate ahead of time. That's exactly right. But I think the tone was right. I think the
Let's
message.
go back to the teleprompter.
That's right. That's right. I think the message was right here. It's not anything unique from a standpoint of. The themes he's been touching on, but he's been touching on them in kind of a scattershot way. This was a linear speech, had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It focused on America and Americans first. It used a lot of we, which is something he hadn't done the entire campaign. It's been about him. It's been about his own Trump brand water. It's been about Trump Tower. It's been about Trump University, lawsuits against the judge who's Mexican, all these types of things. Now we're talking about we, the people, and it's a very good tone for him to strike tonight.
Rick, how do you think that is going to be received? The themes that Hogan just outlined, the themes that were contained in his speech, there was no mention of building a wall. You know, this has become a standard, almost rallying cry on the campaign trail. As you know, during the campaign events, you will hear him say, you know, we're going to build a wall, and then the crowd will respond, and Mexico, you know, and he'll say, who's going to pay for it? And they'll say, Mexico. You know, there's a very established campaign stump speech, to Leslie's point, right? This is not that. This is a departure from that. How do you think this will be received?
Well, it's not a departure in substance, just in style. I mean, in other words, he's not walking back from, you know, building a wall. And I think tomorrow we'll probably hear about the wall again. And by the way, immigration, even Hillary Clinton brought that up in her speech.
Right.
It's going to be a issue that divides Republican and Democratic support for this election. And it's going to play itself out in border states all along the Southwest. And so, trust me, we haven't heard the end of that. I think what Hogan said is that, you know, the point that needs to be made, which is this is a revised version, updated version, a general election version of his new campaign activity, campaign message. And I think we're going to hear it a lot. I mean, I think that he's going to learn a lesson that he didn't know maybe yesterday, that he learned today, which is, gosh, I can, you know, deliver a message. This is what I believe. It's not like he said anything he hasn't been saying. He just said it in a way that's very cogent. And if he can deliver this on a consistent basis between now and the convention, you know, people will calm the waters inside the Republican Party. They'll go back to sort of the status quo ante, which is, you know, he wouldn't have been my choice, but I'm going to support the nominee of the party. If he can get that much done in the next, you know, 2 or 3 weeks, it'll be a big step forward for his campaign, which otherwise today, you know, was in the process of disassembling. So, you know, this is a big step in the trajectory of the campaign.
Just to get back to your point about the style, this is also not a rally. This was an election night speech.
Right.
We've seen him on election nights be a little bit more subdued than he normally is at a rally. This isn't a big arena where you have 10,000 people in there screaming for Donald Trump. This was a much smaller venue. It was at one of his properties.
Good point, yeah. It's a different context, yeah.
Totally different context, right? So it will be interesting to see how much of this speech gets translated into then the next rally, which, you know, he's already said, I go to these rallies, I'm energized by the people and their energy and the number of people at these events. And so you got to wonder.
Is that where a danger could be, perhaps, because of the message discipline, when you have a different scenario where you have the energy of the crowd? Is that a test, then, of the message discipline?
Oh, totally. And I think, you know, you kind of feed off the energy of a crowd. But one thing that I think is interesting about tonight's speech is that, you know, we've read that 2 of the primary authors of it were Governor Christie and his daughter Ivanka Trump. And they both have played memorable roles. Ivanka Trump, you know, his daughter, after Trump's announcement where he compared Mexicans to rapists, she was very insistent that he release a statement walking it back. And Governor Christie has repeatedly criticized Trump over his call for a border wall. So I think you can kind of attribute that tone and the lack of that divisive language to some of the people who are writing it.
So what else stood out to you, Leslie, over the course of the remarks from Donald Trump? I thought it was interesting as well. He reached out to the African-American community. He said, we're going to take care of our African-American people who've been mistreated for so long. That was one of the lines in his speech. That's not necessarily something we've heard before.
From him, but you used to hear it from Republican Party leaders when they were talking about failed policies for the last 4 decades that have not empowered minority communities in the way that they could. And it's like that it was a fair approach, didn't work. Let's look at compromises. And actually, the true message of that is bipartisan compromises where Republicans and Democrats came together. If you think of welfare reform, for example, in terms of putting people back to work, making them proud, eliminating things like what they wanted, like what Speaker Ryan wants to do now is ending penalties for being married, things that can allow people to build wealth together and step out of a poverty system and move their way up. How can we work together with Democrats to get that done? So the point being, there are solutions that Republicans have that they want to engage in this conversation. I think it's a very welcome message. It's not new to the Republican Party. It's new to Donald Trump. That's the difference, and I'm hoping it remains consistent because everything from educational opportunities in underserved communities, school choice, empowering families, the faith and social issues. There's a lot of ground we can work on that brings people together, people can buy into, and it's not as caustic and bombastic as just saying build the wall. It starts talking to everybody.
Right, and something so simple as something we did in Arkansas with Governor Huckabee. Got rid of mandatory minimums, got rid of instituted drug courts. I mean, it's just stupid to have these types of harsh penalties. And we saw so many cases in Arkansas where a white kid caught with marijuana would get just get off, and then a black kid, same age, would get 45 years. It was just ridiculous. And so little things like that the Republicans could do, and quite frankly, I was one of the ones that when they took over both chambers, the House and the Senate, that should have been one of the first things they did. You could have made all types of inroads had you done that right off the bat, but that's another story for another time. But still,
well, in California,
but
you saw that.
Relevant.
Yeah, it is very relevant. You saw it pass in California with a lot of Republican support when you're talking about ending mandatory sentencing.
And Trump leads that charge and has the pulpit he does, and he starts doing that. Again, I think it opens up all types of doors for us. And what I'm waiting to see, it's not just you put the speech in context, but let's say someone smarts off to him tomorrow on Twitter or smarts off to him in an interview. I'm waiting for a tweet to come back and just say, you have your opinion, I have mine. I'm focused on getting Americans back to work. You're not. Instead of saying, you're stupid, you're dumb, I'd like to see him come back with some tweets that were more substantive as well. Then I'll know he's kind of really taking some of this stuff to heart.
So those are the signs for you, Hogan. I'm wondering what other indicators do you think, Rick and Leslie, would there be to kind of show that, yes, in fact, the Donald Trump that we saw after, after this contest, this latest contest, is the Donald Trump that's here to stay? Are there, situations like that?
He's not going to do anything between now and the convention that's more important or more relevant than the convention program that we put on in Cleveland in the next 5 weeks. So, between now and then, it's putting together the program, it's picking a vice president, it's, trying to figure out how your general election campaign staff's going to look and what those messages are, and a lot of polling and internal activity. But what the public will see, and the public will see very little of that, what the public will see is the program on Monday night, the program on Tuesday night, the vice presidential speech, and the presidential nominating acceptance speech on Thursday night. Tens of millions of Americans will watch that Republican convention. If it's anything like the Republican debates, twice as many, 5 times as many potentially people will view this because of the curiosity of Donald Trump. And so that is the next big pit stop for gas in this race for presidency. And so whether they learn the lessons that the party learned in 2012, where they said we got to reach out to other coalitions, we got to embrace some of these new directions on issues, if the platform is going to be something new that embraces these kinds of issues that you all have been talking about, is going to be seen then. And so I think that we'll enter a phase of this campaign now, which is sort of retooling and skirmishing between the two campaigns, contrasting amongst each other. But the next big event, campaigns are about moments. And the moments we're going to see now are not winning primaries anymore. That's over. It's not, accepting the nomination of your party until you are at the convention. And so that will matter most.
I would even make the argument that we're getting into a month, by the way, where a lot of the stuff that happens in the coming month is not going to be remembered. in 6 weeks. Once you get to that convention, once you get to that convention speech, that's really the moment when the general election starts. And if you remember all the moments in past presidential campaigns that were memorable, all happened at the convention or afterwards.
Right.
This is the biggest issue that I'm paying attention to, and it kind of goes to those points. To have a successful convention like that, to have another momentous kind of movement where the entire globe is basically watching this, it isn't one thing that happens overnight. It's a series of small successes day after day between now and the time that opens. It's like losing weight or training for a marathon. You got to do it every day. You don't want to. It's like the Muhammad Ali thing. I hated training, but I wanted to be a champion. It's the same thing. And the discipline is not just in the messaging. The discipline is in the diversity within his campaign. Where are the women in strategic positions? Where are people that are other than white? I'm sorry.
Where are the people?
Where
He
are the
doesn't
people?
have a large campaign.
It's an anemic campaign anyway, but it's not just.
I thought we were headed on such a positive trajectory.
We were. There is no way to have diversity of thought within an organization without diversity of people. Those two are interlinked. And I'm not talking about let's go get a Latino and black representative who goes out and does Latino outreach and black outreach. I'm talking about people that are systematically in the message and communication shop, in the war room, in the party platform, faith leaders, building coalitions, partnerships, doing the ads. Where are any of those people? Because that does not magically appear. And their Rolodexes that they've existed for the last 2 and 3 decades, that they've worked in politics and worked as elected officials, where are they in terms of coming to the table? Without that diversity, I don't think you can have this kind of kumbaya moment of inclusion that everybody's hoping for.
Really excellent points.